Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you I have a Marvel's Avenger video. I'm going to be taking a few moments and I'm going to be talking about the most recent announcement, as well as I'm going to kind of talk about, well, more or less the death of a game. And there's a lot to be taken away from here, and honestly, anybody who's sitting around watching this that might end up as a future developer or as a developer should definitely take some notes. Because this isn't the first time this has happened, and honestly, there's a lot here that runs parallel to another game, which I will be talking about here in a bit. And let's just get on into it here, okay? First thing is I want to talk about the announcement itself. This is actually on their website, which honestly is kind of hilarious because when they actually posted this, the link didn't work for like the first 24 hours or so. Well, maybe not 24 hours, but it didn't work at first for quite a while. So this is kind of like a no shit, just like the game, they can't even get their fucking website to work. Good job. But so here's everything, you know, that's part of the announcement. I'm not going to cover every single little detail here, and honestly just pause this to read it. But essentially following update 2.8, which they're hoping to get out by March 31st, 2023, there's not going to be anything new coming to the game. You know, now it's going to be official support is going to end September 30th, 2023. Both single player and multiplayer gameplay will be available. See more information, which there is a Q&A. I am going to put a link in the video description down below so you can go see that information. And I would say if you're concerned with the future of Marvel's Avengers and like what's going to happen to my game, that's the place to go check it out. I'm not going to cover all of it here because it's actually a quite long section, which I don't blame them. And then there's also a bit more here where they talk about the marketplace, the challenge cards, and the whole 9 yards. And basically, it's just going to all get shut down and given to everybody for free. Everything. At least the marketplace stuff. I think the in-game store stuff that you buy with units will continue to still exist. But that, honestly, is just minor stuff. Now, with that being said, there's a couple things I want to talk about here, and this is the part where I'm just going to focus on talking about the death of a game, why this game died on its feet, as well as why some other games have died on their feet, and you'll see where I'm going here in a bit with this. But I want to just start with the poor launch. The launch was just so poor, straight up. I mean, I've been playing this game, I can't remember if it was the alpha or maybe it was a closed beta, but basically, as soon as I could play this game, I started playing this game. So I've been here literally since day one. Okay? And I'm going to be straight out with you. I could see in the beta that the game was not ready, that it needed more, and that it was missing content. There was a lot of bugs that needed fixed. There was content issues that needed, or connection issues that needed dealt with, things of that nature. And then, of course, when the game launched, which, now that being said, they said that they actually had fixed a lot of bugs from the beta to the actual launch, and yeah, that was straight up bullshit. This game launched raw as fuck. It needed to be put back in the oven.
Roll! Roll! You're done! Don't worry!
And then in all honesty, okay, the game had a large collection of bugs. It still does have a large collection of bugs, guys. There's bugs in this game that have been there since the beta, and they're still there. They're never going to go away, which is one reason why I said about, no, they shouldn't release this game when I saw some of the stuff that was an issue in the game, because once the game got released, that was it. It was never going to get fixed. And with that being said, a lot of people were talking about this game and pretty much saying that this is Anthem 2.0. And that's kind of where some lessons can be learned, is from Anthem. Because Anthem, it was the same way. It was a really poor launch. It gave people a lot of bad taste in their mouth. And the game ended up failing, falling flat on its face. And essentially, you got the same thing here. Yes, there's people that do enjoy it. And honestly, in small portions, I enjoy the game too. But this game could have been so much more than it was. And essentially, it was the game that wasn't. And honestly, it just never felt like the game was able to get on its feet. And at this point now, it just never will because, like I said, they're ending service for the game. So, yeah, that's a lot of unfortunate. And there's still a lot of stuff.
Member of the elite team must
You
be
know,
defeated.
the story itself, always, just no direction is another issue with the game. Absolutely no direction whatsoever. Stories would end just abruptly, like it never felt like they had a full plan on where the story was going to go.
Down.
They introduced some parts that they could have worked into stories, but never really did anything with them. The last few characters that were implemented, Mighty Thor and Winter Soldier, the implementation felt weak. Now, Winter Soldier's implementation felt better than Mighty Thor's, which is Jane Foster, by the way, for anyone that's not keeping a scorecard and abreast on comic books. But honestly, Mighty Thor felt like it was just shoehorned in. It was never meant to be a character that was going to be added to the game. And it felt really weak. And with that being said, even though I can tell you from day one that they were planning on introducing Winter Soldier, even his implementation felt weak.
They have lost another agent.
The grind in this game, the awful, awful, awful fucking grind in this game is another thing that killed it.
The team are no
I'm
longer
sorry,
a
folks,
threat.
but you're essentially playing the same levels over and over again. I mean, essentially, I've been playing the same 5 levels since the game introduced. Now, don't get me wrong. I've played some of the other levels and some of the other stages from time to time. But essentially, the same 4 or 5, maybe 6 levels, missions that was put in the game are still the best missions to play because of the amount of loot. I mean, it's a loot 'em, beat 'em up, loot 'em shooter type of game. So the name of the game is loot. If you're not getting loot, then why are you playing? Now, of course, it doesn't matter if you have your characters maxed out, but if you're trying to get your characters leveled up, it does matter. It really matters. That being said, too, there was also features that was promised and never added. There was talk about kind of a more open world patrol mode. Crossplay was another one that was talked about, promised, never added. And that was actually supposed to be added to the game a few months after launch. They said they were hoping within 6 months after launch that they were going to have cross-platform play in the game. Never happened. And of course, at this point, never will. And that's something that might have been able to save the game because actually the game did better on PlayStation 5 than it did on Xbox and PC. So maybe that could have saved the game because one problem too is when I was talking about the missions, like now there's certain types of certain missions you have to play to get the higher level end game gear, and you can't play them because they're multiplayer only. Yeah, who wants to sit there for fucking an hour and a half, 2 hours, waiting to get into a mission that they may not complete because they may get DC'd from the server? That's an issue they also never fixed, and it's kind of been a problem since, well, beta. And honestly, sometimes it felt like they cared more about the microtransactions than anything else. Just weekly new skins, weekly takedowns, all the time. Just more and more and more microtransactions. And honestly, the microtransactions definitely turned people away from the game. And as bugs continued to exist and more microtransactions came out, that turned more people away from the game. And I don't care if how you feel about that. That's just the honest truth. And honestly, to me, at the end of the day, it felt like some fucking Randy Pitchford shit. We're talking really greasy here, boys. So, what the hell can you do? That's going to kill a game too. People are sick of seeing microtransactions, especially on games that are in betas and alphas. What the hell was it? I think it was Breakpoint 2 was an alpha and fucking microtransactions. And people just went apeshit. People went ape shit on the microtransactions for this game.
Authentication
And guess what? It was in
I need
good,
access to
like,
multiple
it was called
The
for.
more the better.
Especially now looking back at how many microtransaction updates we've gotten to this
Anyone
game,
attempt to initiate
but the
a
lack of
shutdown protocol
content
may gain
updates we've
access
gotten
to
in
the
this
terminal.
game. I mean, hell, it was almost, what was it, 8 months, almost a year before we actually got some new content in this game. Now, I might be off on that. I know it was quite a while, though, before we actually got some new content. And that's because they were more focused on fixing bugs that they still is in the game. So, I mean, that's kind of an issue in itself. So, like, you know, lay off the micro game developers, you know, studios, etc., publishers, lay off the microtransactions. And honestly, for the microtransaction thing, I blame Square Enix more than I do Crystal Dynamics on that one. I mean, there was bugs I found tonight that I never even seen before.
The shutdown protocol is progressing.
Shit. But yet, hey, we got new skins today. Got to get the new skins. Actually, sorry, they were a few days ago. New skins come out Thursday. Every Thursday, new microtransactions. But then you go several months without a patch, without an update, without content. If you got to keep getting out new content if you want to keep the player base interested in your game. Of course, with some of the stuff I seen, yeah, it was kind of they weren't focused on new content because the game just wasn't doing well. Obviously, it's only been 2.5 years, and I think they were ready to call it quits after a year. Honestly, at times, it felt like it was Crystal Dynamics was ready to call it quits several months after the game's launch. Almost right after the game's launch, to be honest. And that's the last thing I actually want to talk about is just the developer just not caring, in all honesty. It never felt like the developer really cared. Like it did at first, especially before the launch of the game. But after the launch of the game, shortly after that, it just felt like they really didn't care anymore. They didn't want this project in the first place. And honestly, I did find out after the fact, and I just literally found out a few months ago. It was like 5-6 months ago that Crystal Dynamics actually never really cared about Marvel's Avengers. They, you know, it was a project that they were stuck doing and never wanted to truly do. But they were contracted to Square Enix, and Square Enix said jump, and they had to jump. Now that they're separated and with Embracer Group, well, that's going to be a big, you know, we'll see what happens in the future with Crystal Dynamics, because I still believe if they really care, they can still make a really great game. But with that being said, they never truly cared about Marvel's Avengers. And that was something that was, like, really kept hush-hush until, honestly, they were, Crystal Dynamics was sold to Embracer Group. And that's the same with, I guess, Eidos Montreal's in there too. I'm not 100% sure about the whole sale. That was, like I said, several months ago, and I don't remember all the information about that. So actually, that should be a note, really, for Square Enix. And next time you want to embark on a huge project that you want to have around for a long time and to be successful, because honestly, folks, this game, it was intended for this game to be around a long time, to get content updates for several years. And it's basically, they're going to make their minimum contract due, which was 3. And we're never, essentially, it was 3, and the optimal was 5. And they were hoping it was going to go longer. And that's just, it's obviously, like I said, it's not going to happen now. And, you know, so that should be a note for all publishers. If you're going to embark on a major project that you want to be successful, get a developer that fucking cares. Because if the developer doesn't care, sooner it will show. And when it comes to Marvel's Avengers, it does show that they were half-hearted in the project. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure certain members of the Crystal Dynamics team that worked on this game did care. I'm 100% sure of that. But at the end of the day, not enough of them cared that mattered. Either way, folks, I'm going to wrap this video up at that. I don't care if you know, if you agree with me on all my opinions. Here's the fact, it's an opinion. Everything I've said here is based on opinion outside of their announcement and some of the stuff that went on behind closed doors and some of the stuff that I heard from the community, such as calling the game Anthem 2.0. So there's quite a bit of truth, but really compiling the death of the game is strictly opinion. And honestly, I guess there's truth to that as well, because if you look at how Anthem went down as well as some other games that just kind of died, there you go. Like all of it, or almost all of it. Anyway, folks, thanks again for watching this video. Hopefully, you all enjoyed it. And please help me out and share this video around and have yourself a wonderful day.